thing was, Amber was trying to get everybody to become readers and read the great books of the world, because they can take you higher and higher and higher and higher, in the mental spheres, in the mental plane. And while I was reading the book, it said, yes, the great books of the world, they will take you higher and higher and higher. And then you die. And then he just went on to the next paragraph. And I said, wait a minute, hey, Mort, hold on there. What do you mean, and then you die? Then you don't want to address that? But he didn't. He just went on and on and on. He kept going on about the glories of the life of the mind. That was it. The jnani, the life of the mind. And then you die. And then he just went on, like he hadn't said anything that needed to be discussed. But I certainly got it. So that's what happens. Tattvasattvam, I quoted this before. Tattvasattvam nirmalatvat prakasha kamanamaya sukasangena bhavnati jnana sangena chanaka. O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those in this mode develop knowledge, but sukasangena bhavnati, they become conditioned by the concept of happiness. They think that's a nice life. Repeatedly, Prabhupada says in the purport, one becomes a poet, a scientist, a philosopher. They think this is a good life. I'm better off than all these poor, huddled masses suffering like me. But that's not a good life. You got to repeatedly get born, do the whole school thing, and then you get sick, and then you get old, and you die. Not good. Therefore, even jnana, what to speak of karma, even jnana is considered a pot of poison. A life of karma kanda or jnana kanda is like a poison pot, and one who takes to such a life is doomed. Wow. In the karma kanda system, one is destined to accept birth and death again and again. Similarly, with jnana kanda, one falls down again to this material world. Only worship of the Supreme Person offers one the safety of going back home, back to God. So that's the fifth dimension of existence, Panchama Purushaka. Or in Vedanta Sutra it talks about the moyas, remember? Anamoya, Brahmamoya, Manamoya, and then either Brahma or Vijnanamoya and Anandamoya. Now, maybe you could help me with this because I never quite understood these. Anamoya is when all you realize is that existence means you have to eat, right? Like an amoeba is ingesting food through the cell wall, something like that. That's Anamoya. You're living to eat. And then, from what I understand, Pranamoya, you become aware of yourself, you distinguish yourself from other selves, from other living entities. And therefore, you feel you have to protect yourself. So there's the idea of defense, of self-preservation is coming in. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, you're aware of life symptoms.
Life symptoms.
Both breathing. So you realize the supreme in life symptoms. You realize the supreme in food. Actually, you kind of aware of your dependency on food, and that's your realization of the supreme.
Well, that's Anna, right?
Yes, Anamaya. Yeah.
And Anna means you have to breathe to live.
I know you become aware of that there are life symptoms, and there are other living beings, and your own living being, and you are. Well, actually, it involves quite many things. Pranamoya. Not just to move around, but it's also, for example, all moral ethics actually falls within the... Because we
with others.
Yeah, and we have to coexist.
Yeah.
So we find out that actually, instead of fighting to eat, I'll eat you and you won't. It's better that if we respect each other,
yeah,
and share and are considerate and like that. That's actually that's all pranamaya.
Mm.
Could it be translated into moral and ethics? Something like that?
I think it could be translated as pranamoya. I mean that.
There's different levels, like animals, they have pecking orders.
Yeah.
They know their place.
Yeah.
Like I was at the Vietnam for 13 years, and the queen of the herd was Chintamani. She was the queen of the herd. Because, you know why? Because she was grave. This is a special cow. This was what the farmers call an honest cow. An honest cow means one who eats the grass, chews the cud, and with the process of chewing the cud and regurgitating it and chewing it and she uses all of her energy to make milk. She doesn't, there's this expression in English, horse around, means fool around. She doesn't cow around, she doesn't, jump around whimsically and start butting heads with the other cows. She just eats, chews her cud, makes the milk. Just all business, And just her whole demeanor, there's a picture of me on Back to Godhead in 1989. Did you ever see this on the cover of the BTG? You probably didn't know it was me.
I was reading at that time, but I don't remember. I don't remember. I was reading Back to God in 89.
All right. But anyway, I was on the cover of BTG. Because Vietnam is not far from Philadelphia, where BTG was produced then. And I was writing this Plain Living and High Thinking column. So they took a bunch of photos of me in 1983. And in 89, in June 89 issue, I was shocked all of a sudden, because I was a subscriber and I got the BTG in the mail. And there I am on the cover, But I'm hugging Chintamani, the cow. That's the photographer, Yamaraj Prabhu. I said, I know just the cow, Yamaraj. I know who's going to hold still, for a picture. Who's going to be brave enough. Guys, so we went out next to the barn in a little pasture, and sure enough, she was a gem. She just posed kind of, she was just great. And it came out well. And the other cows really respected Chintamani. She was the queen of the herd, whatever she did, they followed. Yajaracha Tishreshtas, whatever a great cow does, other cows follow. So she had first turn at the trough when it was feeding time, and when she would start to go in, they would follow her to the bottom. She was very regulated. She was super regulated. The cows are pretty regulated anyway. They like regulation. That's part of their change of goodness. And so nobody messed with it. Nobody tried to butt Chintamani. She was the queen. How did I get into that? Oh, pecking. Oh, pranamine. Okay. Okay, it's life symptoms and convictions. We're distinguishing ourselves from others. Then manamaya means there's thinking, feeling, and willing. And so animals, highly higher animals, they have this. Like Prabhupada would say, the cat is very intelligent to know when you're out of the kitchen and then the cat's going to come in and snoop around and look for some milk or to see what else is there to eat or something. So animals have this intelligence, but solely directed toward where's food, where can I peacefully sleep, who can I mate with, and how can I defend myself. So it's thinking, feeling, and willing, all directed toward eating, sleeping, mating, defending. That's the total focus of animal life. Therefore, Prabhupada called modern civilization animal civilization, because we're simply doing those things in a very polished way. And then, it's not till you come to the fourth dimension, Vijnana or Brahmamaya, it's called differently, when you can step back and you can understand that you're somehow different from this whole scene, that you're not actually part of this. I'm different from this material scene by the intelligence. As Prabhupada writes in the Gita, any reasonable person can consider that he's undergone changes of body through his whole life, but he's still the same person. He might have changed bodies, his mind has changed, but he's essentially the same person, the same living being. So that's the Vijnana Maya. You can distinguish matter from spirit based on some level. But not until we come to Ananda Maya that we have a blissful relationship with our source, our beloved source, Krishna. Is that actually satisfying to the soul? Because the spirit is a relational phenomenon, it's a relational being. We exist in relationship with others, even Krishna, especially Krishna. It starts with Krishna. You ever see Krishna alone, at least he with his flute, right? And the gopis are jealous of that flute because it's tasting the nectar of Krishna's lips all the time. So, only worship of the Supreme Person offers one the safety of going back home, back to Godhead. It's only when we come to Anandamaya that we're actually satisfied and we don't want to come down again to all the other stuff. Alright, that's all I have to say. What time is it? Oop. 8:39. So don't ask me about that last sentence. What is that? Thus, in due course, a qualified Brahmin becomes uninterested in materialist activities and sacrifices, but he offers the sensual sacrifices in full knowledge into the working senses. It sounds like the Gita, 4th chapter, right? From 4:25 to 33. There's all these different kinds of sacrifices, and it all ends up in the sacrifice of knowledge and knowing. Let's read those. Maybe we'll get a clue before I give up.
It might just be an editorial mistake.
Huh?
It might be an editorial mistake also.
Oh, the translation?
Yeah. I mean, also I cannot grasp what is it. But there are mistakes like that.
Yeah, that's true. But in the contexts, when you see all the other things, then you can know if it's a mistake or not. Okay, 4:24, 4:25. Well, actually, it starts right here. Yeah, 4:24 to 34, really. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities in which the consummation is absolute, right, the result. And that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. As Prabhupada would say, the means and the ends are the same. In Bhakti, we're singing to Krishna not so we can do something else, but so we can sing to Krishna in the spiritual world too. We're offering food to Krishna so we can offer him in the spiritual world too. Whereas the other sacrifices, there are means to a different end. Alright, 4:25, this is where it starts to get very technical. Alright, as far as I know, these are different sacrifices for the ashrams. Yeah. Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them. And some offer sacrifices in the fire of the Supreme Brahman. We have to read all the purport. Some, the unadulterated brahmacharis, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control. And others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. And Prabhupada in the purport talks about brahmacharis hearing intensively, Veda, and householders, because their ashram is kind of a license for a little more sense relaxation, indulgence. Therefore, they're enjoined to be charitable and give things away and feed people and share their facility with others. 4:27. Others who are interested in achieving self-realization through control of the mind and the senses offer the functions of all the senses and of the life breath as oblations into the fire of the controlled mind. And Prabhupada talks about Patanjali, the yoga, mystic yoga system here. 28. Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions, and others by performing severe austerities, by practicing the yoga of Eightfold Mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge. Long story short is that human life is meant for sacrifice. That's what it specifically, the body is built for that. It's not, I mean, whatever our attachments are, we can have other bodies if we want to fulfill material desires. Like Prabhupada, he would be walking, having a morning walk in Hawaii, for example, in a place called Magic Island. It used to be a dump, and they turned it into an island, a landfill, and they just planted grass over it, and it became a nice park. So Prabhupada used to go there. You've seen pictures by Jani Gata. And so then he'd see the surfers coming in, right? Catching the morning waves. So Prabhupada would say, you say surfers, I say sufferers. Because they're preparing what kind of a body for themselves? Fish, especially the best surfers out there are the dolphins. If you want to ride the waves, wow. There's nobody that can ride like the dolphins. So, that's what's going on in the material world. I mean, it's in the early morning to go out in the waves, and you risk your life. Some of those waves can kill you. You can snap your neck. So, it depends on what you want to sacrifice for. Still others, and this is my favorite one because there's so much prana in here, I think I know. Apane juvati pranam pranipanam tatapare prana panagati rudva pranayama parayana apare niyatahara pranam praneshu juvati. Still others who are inclined to the process of breath restraint to remain in trance. Practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming, and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in trance. Stopping all breathing. They don't breathe. That's why they don't age. They know how to stop the breath. So when they come out of the caves down to Allahabad for Kumbh Mela, Prabhupada said, yes, they look like boys, but they're 400 years old. No, they don't breathe much. And thus at last remain in trance, stopping all breathing. Others, curtailing the eating process, offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. And then Krishna starts summing it up. All these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of sinful reactions. That's the whole point, to be elevated from the lower desires to the higher. And having tasted the nectar of the results of sacrifices, they advance toward the supreme eternal atmosphere. O best of the Kuru dynasty, without sacrifice, one can never live happily on this planet or in this life, but then in the next. So if one decides, I'm not going to do any sacrifice, you have to. Even if you want to just live a halfway decent life, you have to work hard, so you can eat, and otherwise if you just wander around, that's very hard. It's harder to be homeless than to work. Do they have people out staying now? Oh, they don't do that in Denmark. They have people with signs, homeless and hungry, who will work for food. They have them.
We have them now.
Yeah.
Wow.
We didn't like 20 years ago like that, but Kali Yuga has progressed, so now there are quite many of them.
But can you imagine holding a sign like that outside in the rain? And that's really wretched. It's hard.
But they don't say this will work for home and food. Sign.
Yeah, I see some on the main street, on the big walking street. They have some, something like, "Please give me a work. I'm an honest man. I'll do anything." I mean,
Gypsies. This is like gypsies. These are.
But both Danes and
Danes get social money.
Danes don't do that.
Oh, not Danes. Just the immigrants.
Yeah.
In Norway, it's a big trend, very big trend,
Mm-hmm.
with the sign. It's been for many years.
Is it because of the refugees coming out?
No, it's like they're
It's
Norwegians.
Wow.
Here they have they're publishing the homeless magazine, and then homeless people, they can go and
Sell it.
so they're selling this.
Yes.
Outside supermarkets selling this homeless
Yes,
magazine.
we have that too. Yeah, they produce their own magazine. A homeless community. Yeah, you gotta be politically correct. In America, when I was growing up, we would just say bums. bums, useless people. Now you can't say that. You have to say, the displaced or something, the unfortunate. Okay, all these different types of sacrifice are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated. And then, just before Tadvihi, Krishna says, O chastiser of the enemy, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possessions. After all, O son of Prita, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge. So becoming aware, the consciousness. That's what I understand how species are distinguished in Vedic literature by levels of consciousness. Not simply, what did Darwin say, if they can mate and produce offspring? Did Darwin say that?
No, that's Linnaeus.
Linnaeus, the classification.
Yeah, that's standard classification.
Okay, yeah, so the Vedic is by level of consciousness. So then when you really want to know the truth, then just try to learn the truth. Approaching the spiritual mind. Okay, you had a question?
I was wondering about this Gavadan Samskara. I heard one lecture with Bhaktivinoda Purna Maharaj where he gave the example that Madhava Muni, his parents, they were fasting on milk for like 10 years before they begot him, and that was like that, like Gavadan Samskara. So I was just wondering how, because we have this thing of chanting like 50 rounds, but how the Gavadan Samskara, it looked like previous in former ages. And I was also wondering is there more things the parents they can do in order to prepare themselves?
Yeah, it's kind of like if someone asks you to give class, or if you want to give Bhagavatam class, you can study and prepare a class with references and stories and verses. But the best way to prepare for Bhagavatam class is what?
Pretty commercial.
Yeah, well, okay, but I'm thinking maybe this is a trick question. Is to just practice Krishna consciousness very well. Then you'll be prepared. Then if somebody springs it on you, you'll have, because you're already reading, you're already hearing and chanting, and you're already serving. And whereas, so I'm saying this because if you go to, like in ISKCON, okay, say the husband and wife chant 50 rounds, but it's not that you can be nonsense people and then all of a sudden you go chant 50 rounds and presto, some saint will pop out. The best way to prepare to have a purified child, to purify the womb, is to always be that way, is to be practicing Krishna consciousness and very conscientiously. So, it's like the best way to pass your exams, your final exams, in school. I mean, you can slide and then try to cram it at the end, and that's risky. You might just, forget everything because you get too much in your brain. But if you're always preparing all along, for the quizzes and the papers, and then taking the final won't be that big of a deal because you've been studying and be conscientious all along. So therefore, Prabhupada would quote the Bengali saying, Bodram koro, sadhan koro, burti jani hoy. Whatever bhajan and sadhan one has done will be tested at the time of death. These japa retreats they do, or japa classes. So Mahaprabhu Gaura does one, and he tells a funny story how the devotee is chanting all his life, and at the time of death, he leaves his body, and then two beings appear to him. Shnik and Ram. You know this story?
Yeah.
Who are you? He thinks maybe they're the Yamadutas. I'm Shnik. I'm Ram. Who are you? Well, you've been calling us all your life. Shnik, Shnik, Ram, Ram, Shnik, Ram. And there's one video I just saw on ISKCON News, how not to chant japa. Have you seen this? It's really good. It's done by Desire Tree. And it's all from, Chopati, so you see all Indian devotees in it acting out. And there's different ways not to chant. So, there's one devotee, he's chanting while he's playing computer games on his cell phone. He's absorbed in the game, and the mantra's in the background. It's kind of like background music to his gaming. And then there's a couple of Madhajis, kind of middle-aged Madhajis, and they're just yakking away. And they're fingering their beads, while they're yakking away, and then it's laughing, and then they start giving each other high fives, and they're gossiping basically what they're doing, but they've got their hand in their bead bag. And what are some others? Oh, and then there's a guy in a scooter, with India especially, is full of scooters. And he's Hare Krishna, and then he starts closing his eyes, and then whoop, he starts swerving because he almost hit somebody because he was trying to multitask, trying to jam good rounds. He's keeping his eyes on the road. What were the others? There was some fighting. They're greeting the deities. And so somebody's in the background and he's trying to chant his japa real pucka while everybody else is singing, and he's trying to chant his japa. Sometimes when I go to give my seminar, I see somebody comes and they're prepared to chant their rounds while they're hearing the seminar. And I just say, Prabhuji, no japa during the seminar. Multitasking is a myth. Only Krishna can multitask properly. As soon as you try to do one more thing, then the quality of both suffers. Only Krishna can just be svabhava ki jnana balakriyacha, whatever he thinks he can manifest. He can do just by thinking of it.
Regarding Garbhadan Samskar, you mentioned the other day about George Harrison, who heard in his womb ragas, Indian ragas.
Yeah, that was after he was already conceived. He was in the womb, and that must have been when he woke up to it, because that was the only thing that would pacify his mother, because he was always kicking. George was always kicking, and then he would become pacified when he heard these Indian ragas. Yeah, it's pretty far out. Past life, something past. And then, when he was 23, when he met Ravi Shankar, Ravi became his, Varna guru, his sitar guru. And that was the beginning of going toward, the guru. Let's see if we see the letter from Prabhupada to Shyam Sundar. Prabhupada said, yes, we were in Calcutta today, and we passed John Lennon's house in his previous life. You ever see this letter?
I heard it, but I didn't know it was a letter.
Yeah, it's a letter. And then Prabhupada starts explaining, because of John's, he was a great patron of musicians in his previous life, and because he was so supportive of musicians, therefore he's been blessed with a lot of musical gifts in this life. Who knows how Prabhupada knew that was John Lennon's house? We passed John Lennon's house. But they were definitely...
It's there, it's in the database?
I saw the letter. Not all letters are in there, because not everybody surrendered their letters. And how many times the archive would say, look, you don't have to give us the original, just make a copy and send it to us. But some people never did that. So, yeah, there's many letters I've seen that are not in that database.
I was wondering if this Gaura and Samskara, it is something which can be preached to the public rather than just for devotees.
Well, at least we can make a connection between consciousness